Hey guys, it's Chris and welcome back to another WandaVision video. This time talking episode 4, where we teleported from the little sitcom universe over to the real world and saw things from S.W.O.R.D's perspective. I thought this was really well done. We got to kind of fill in some of the blanks there for the first 3 episodes and see what actually happened in some of these cases. Although there's still a lot of mystery to be unfolded, we've gotten a few answers now, and it kind of verified some of the things we thought in the first place. So anyway, let's jump over to the real world and talk about WandaVision episode 4. And real quickly, before we get started, let me mention my fantasy debut novel, The Crimson Gods, is done. I am now in the editing phase, and so the Indiegogo campaign is live if you want to pre-order The Crimson Gods. We're thinking about probably June for a release date. But anyway, if you dig fantasy novels, specifically with a little dark fantasy twist, consider checking out our page and supporting the project, or you can join Patreon as well. Those have the same perks. So I'll have those links in the description below. So anyway, let's jump into WandaVision episode 4. Really good episode here. I loved how they opened this episode. We saw Monica Rambeau recovering from the blip. Now, we saw people come back from the blip in Spider-Man, I believe, when the marching band came back on the basketball court. But this time we actually got to see people kind of come back together from this ash or whatever you want to call it. And if you listen closely, you could even hear some of the audio from like Captain Marvel, for example. So we saw Monica Rambeau come back together in the hospital room. Of course, she doesn't know 5 years has passed. She thought she just fell asleep, and her mom has since passed away. And for those that may have not watched my earlier videos, Monica is the daughter of Maria Rambeau, nicknamed Photon. That is her call sign as a captain in the Air Force. And she was the best friend of Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. And of course, we did see that as well. A shout out to her and who Monica will become when they headed over to the S.W.O.R.D headquarters, and she's kind of been away for 5 years, so her badge has kind of expired, and she meets up with the acting director of S.W.O.R.D, and then of course we see the Maria Photon Rambeau plaque on the wall, and he actually mentions that she built S.W.O.R.D from the ground up, probably with Nick Fury's help. They walk into the S.W.O.R.D headquarters and walk by a ship being worked on or built. I was trying to pause it and see what kind of ship this was, so I didn't really catch anything. I believe it was probably just one of their ships as they do space missions as S.W.O.R.D does, but I really couldn't catch anything. So if you notice anything in particular about that ship, let me know in the comments below. We see Agent Wu return, the one who loves magic, and if you remember from Ant-Man, he was the FBI agent trying to keep track of Scott Lang. And I thought this was a good team up with Monica and him going to Westview, the actual town, and we see that it is an actual town from the outside. And you can see here, as we mentioned before, something else is going on here other than just Wanda herself controlling this place. Somebody else is also doing something and manipulating her, obviously, as we've all suspected. The sheriff sitting right in front of the town has no idea that the town exists. So there's definitely something bigger going on here with mind control as they're standing right in front of this town with the sign right behind them. So this went from a missing persons case to an actual missing town case. We saw Monica pull out a little helicopter drone, and that does confirm that's what we saw, I believe, in episode 2 when Wanda finds the little helicopter in the bush and it's colorized. So it has a touch of reality to it, although it has changed. So that seems to be the one that she found in the bushes. Because as we saw throughout this episode, anything that enters the town, including Monica herself, everything kind of changes over to that 70s look or whatever decade they're in the current show. So the drone changed, although it was colorized, and Monica's clothing changed, and her S.W.O.R.D ID badge actually went to a S.W.O.R.D pendant. So she finds this energy field at the edge of the town that kind of looks like a TV screen itself, and then she gets sucked into it, as I just mentioned, and then of course S.W.O.R.D sets up a base camp around the whole damn town that happens to be in another hexagon type shape, and actually we saw that later as he wrote on the board. Why is this a hexagon? Now, a lot of things have been in hexagons. This is a big question we've all had. What symbolism is this? And I think it still references AIM, who is an offshoot of Hydra, of course, as we saw the Hydra commercials. So definitely something's going on here. But the big question is there something bigger controlling Hydra or AIM? Like perhaps Mephisto, the Marvel version of the devil that I mentioned in my episode 3 video breakdown. And then, of course, we see S.W.O.R.D bringing in all these scientists to figure out what the hell's going on here. And they bring in good old snarky Darcy Lewis. And remember, Darcy was in Thor. She was the astrophysicist helping Jane, and now she's apparently a doctor, so they bring her in. And, of course, she's the one to figure out that through this radiation they're picking up in the background, which is the cosmic background radiation left over from the Big Bang. She's the one who picked up there was a signal embedded in it and got the old TV set, and she ended up being the one watching the TV set that we saw at the end of episode 1. So I like how they're kind of going back and showing you what actually happened from S.W.O.R.D's perspective, just like we saw Agent Wu with the FBI working with Darcy. He's the one that actually tried to contact Wanda over the radio, and from their perspective it didn't work, but of course we know, seeing from Wanda's perspective earlier, that it actually did work. But somebody is editing this footage. So they're watching this footage, they're figuring out that all these people are actually real people that are missing, that are playing these certain parts in Wanda's little alternate reality. And then we can see on the background behind them as they kind of figure out who these people are, they're putting them up with their driver's licenses. But we did not see a license or identification for Agatha. And as I mentioned before, her actually being Agatha Harkness, the witch from the Salem witch trials, who at one point mentored Scarlet Witch. And she's definitely working with somebody here, whether it's Mephisto from the comics or whatever it may be. Because, of course, in every episode, she was the one kind of bringing up kids. It's all for the children. And she was the one worried about Monica being in there alone with Wanda. We see reality starting to break a little bit. We see what happened when she actually did kick Monica out of the town. We saw it from the trailer before, and we thought, man, they just didn't use the footage. But no, in fact, they did. We saw from Wanda's perspective what she actually did. She actually manifested her red powers this time as opposed to just straight up magic. And we could have just seen the origin story from the MCU, at least, as far as Photon goes. Monica Rambeau, of course, will be Photon. So maybe the combination of Wanda's powers and her kicking her out of that force field will actually give her the superpowers. For a little bit of time, she was also the second Captain Marvel. But it looks like she will be a big figure going forward in the MCU as Photon. We saw after she kicked her out and kind of fixed the wall, she's starting to cover things up now, even from Vision. But she had a quick little flash of seeing Vision actually dead, like we saw him in Avengers Endgame, after Thanos pulled the Mind Stone out of his fucking head. So while Wanda's also being kind of controlled by somebody, or at least manipulated, she's definitely trying to keep this place together because she can't deal with the trauma of losing Vision, the whole blip thing, all that stuff. So they're trying to kind of make her look like a bad guy here, but she's not really going to be the bad guy in this case. Obviously, we've already seen all the Hydra commercials. We've seen these shout-outs to AIM or whatever. So she's definitely being manipulated in some way. Although this is actually her controlling most of this, she's definitely not in control of all of it. Again, going back to the feed of the TV show that Sword is watching on this TV, who is doing the editing? They're not seeing all the stuff that we are seeing inside the actual universe. So somebody's kind of editing that feed, and I don't think that is Wanda. So we saw that in the episode with the radio where Dottie cuts her hand and we see the red blood and all that stuff, that was actually Agent Wu's voice coming through the radio. So that does confirm that what a lot of people thought. They thought they recognized his voice. We see what happens when somebody crosses over in the actual field itself. They explained the beekeeper outfit. So we had a guy in a hazmat suit going through the tunnels, and it shows you that this force field does extend underground. So as he passes through it, his hazmat suit changed from that to a beekeeper suit, and it also broke his tether and turned it into what looked like a little jump rope or something from the 70s. So now we have a better understanding of who that guy was coming through the drains as far as the sword beekeeper suit. And I don't think this guy's actually dead or anything like that. I think he's probably just playing another role in the town, just like the other people are unaware of themselves playing these roles, but they are real people with real identities. And then we get to the end and kind of catch up to where we were last week, where Vision walks in, where's Monica? She had to go. She had to rush home. So Wanda's now kind of covering this up and lying to Vision after she saw the real version of Vision actually being dead. So now she's fully aware that something's not right here, and she's doing everything she can to kind of keep it all together to live in this perfect little reality with the love of her life, Vision. Anyway, guys, I thought this was an outstanding episode. It kind of brought everything together. So now we're kind of all on the same page. I'm curious to know what people think about, should they have done this earlier or whatever. I personally think it was pretty good. I actually enjoyed the sitcom episodes, and I knew there was more going on behind it, so I knew they would give us those answers eventually. But they gave us a pretty big information dump, but left enough going forward till we still have to figure out what the hell is going on. Anyway, you can click right over here for more writing advice videos, and you can click right over here for more videos as well. And if you dig what I do here, please give these videos a like, comment, and a share. And of course, be sure to subscribe to get everything and click that notification bell so you're notified when I drop a new video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.